There are so many ways that characters can become distinct from each other. I guess the general character design rules would be giving them different physical features, such as different noses and eyes, different body types, and different color palettes. Of course, unique silhouettes and the like. But I have some more unconventional ways of making each character feel distinct, some that go a bit beyond art and writing. I'm talking about psychology, y'all. I majored in communication studies, and while I couldn't use this degree to find a job, I found much better use for it, creating my original characters. There are so many things we do psychologically as humans, things that make us all unique and distinct, and we should apply psychology to our art sometimes. I'll give some examples from characters I've created, of course, because I have a lot of OCs and I want to talk about them, but anyway, enough yapping. Let's talk about the first distinction. Proxemics is something you're already doing in your art, probably, but it's probably unconsciously. But when you're aware of it, you can really make your characters feel distinct in their relationships. So, what is proxemics? Proxemics is a part of nonverbal communication. It's the study of humans and how they use space while communicating. Intimate distance, this goes for people you're extremely close to, like a partner, a close friend, or a family member. Personal distance, this is still close, but it's not insanely close. You may do this with friends or family, people who you're comfortable with or friendly towards. Social distance, which I'm sure all of you have heard before thanks to the pandemic. 2020 was an acid trip. Like, what was going on? But traditionally, in social distance, it'd be towards acquaintances and work colleagues, people you don't really know that well, or people you're not comfortable with in general. And lastly, we have public distance. Just people you pass by. Essentially, it could be strangers, just people you don't really acknowledge. You know, now that we have the 4 proxemics, you can use this mixed with body language to tell a story without any words. Every time I say body language, I think of Ursula from The Little Mermaid. And don't forget the importance of body language. No, I'm not gonna try. But anyways, when Ariel asks how does she get a man without speaking, literally Ursula says body language. I think it's so iconic that we have a Disney princess who is so likable and so smart, and she's like completely mute throughout most of the movie. Her personality is so strong, and yet she doesn't have to say much. So let's do a deep dive into body language. The main 2 that I consider the base when I draw is open and closed bodies, because these 2 can really communicate a feeling. Closed bodies tend to be more anxious, timid, and unfriendly. This includes common body expressions like crossing your arms and legs, leaning back, looking to the floor, stiff postures. When you're closed off, people tend to read you as either pissed off or anxious. There's rarely any positivity in closed bodies. And as someone who personally has like a closed body language, one trick, because I love crossing my arms, I tend to like cross my arms behind my back. It feels just as comfortable while being open. I don't know if that's like a life hack, but meanwhile, we have open bodies. It tells a different story. You appear to be more friendly, confident, and maybe even in control. This includes body expressions like hands on the hips or outward palms, an open gaze, or your feet being apart. When you're open, you're either really friendly or in control of the conversation. Both of these will, regardless, always display confidence. Now, when you mix body language with proxemics, you can get a really good understanding of a character's individual personality as well as their dynamics with other characters. Gioni is the main character, and because she is, it's easier to see the different dynamics and relationships she has. Gioni and Kathy are really good friends. Historians would say that they're very good friends. You can simply see this simply from their body language and proxemics from each other. During peacetime, their bodies are open and they're comfortably within each other's intimate space. During stressful situations, their bodies are sometimes closed to show fear, but still, they're comfortable within that intimate distance. The same goes for Brandon and Gioni. They're always standing so close to each other. It's so funny because people ask me all the time, like, hey, are these guys a thing? Like, And honestly, I haven't written a single I love you. There's not a single one-shot love story. I haven't once drawn hearts around them. Like, nothing says that these guys like each other, especially from how they're written and how they speak to each other. They're written like friends, but when I draw them, it does hint at something else only because of that intimate space. The words don't match the bodies, and that's the power of body language. And also Proxemics, baby. Not to spend so much time on intimate distance, but there's such a treasure trove here that you can explore when it's used. Let's look at Gioni's relationship with Hippie Girl. Hippie Girl does not care about respecting someone's intimate space, and even worse, she can't tell that it's inappropriate. Like, she's unaware that this is probably something you shouldn't do. It's fun drawing them together, I admit, because you can get a sense of their relationship just from a couple of drawings. Gioni's body is closed off, not because she's uncomfortable with something, but instead someone. This is someone who tends to stand super close, someone who is very touchy and unaware. It's a boundary that is continuously broken, and even though Hippie Girl is mostly a nice person, her invasion of that intimate space makes her a nuisance. How Hippie Girl feels about Gioni is not the same way Gioni feels about Hippie Girl, and it's clear from this. And no, I wouldn't say that Hippie Girl has a crush on Gioni. I just think that she just stands really way too close. So, you know, like I said with the intimate space, it's not necessarily like a relationship like these people love each other. It's just something that people do when they're really close to each other. So yeah, this is friends, family, love interest, anybody that are just really close. Now, Pizza Pocket shows a different side to these two when they're in that intimate space. A scenario where they both mutually agree on their proxemics. The crossed arms and tenseness goes away, and both of them appear open and friendly. You know what's crazy? Like, it's about to be like 2 years since I made freaking Pizza Pocket. Oh my gosh. Like, looking at my old art, it's like, it's so weird. But anyways, yeah, you can get an idea of Proxemics just from this alone. Gioni and Emmett are a great example of personal space. Gioni is friends with Emmett, but they're not in each other's intimate space. One character who is a bit timid and anxious, and then we have this other character who is a bit confident but still wants to keep his space to himself. And that's why they don't seem like they're ever a couple. The reason Gioni and Emmett almost seem like a crack ship it's because of drawings like this that tend to lack any traditional definition of people who really love each other. Like, what their relationship gives, it's giving like friendship, almost acquaintance. Now, Gioni and Lamisha are a great example of social distance. They don't like each other, it's almost borderline hate, but regardless, there are times where they have to communicate with each other regardless. And I think their dynamic with each other is pretty interesting because you can tell that they know each other really well, and they're occasionally comfortable talking to one another. It's just that whatever scenario they're in, it's like a very bad mood, and because it's always like in this bad situation, it leads to the social distance that they have. We also have public distance. There's not much to say, honestly, but when you draw it, it's honestly a great opportunity to show that the character is alone at the moment. Gioni is rarely isolated, but Lamisha is isolated all the time, so you can always see her framed with public distance in mind. I don't think any artist talks about proxemics when it comes to art, but we all draw it subconsciously anyway. But the thing is, when you're aware of it, it can make for great character interactions. Okay, on to the next one. I know the people in my Discord right now, I know they're so freaking sick of me talking about this. They're collectively rolling their eyes right now because communication styles gets mentioned a lot. Like a lot. I bring it up a lot because it makes writing OC so much easier. And when you learn the psychology behind communicators, it can make them feel distinct as well. Communication styles are the way people interact with one another. There are 4 of them that can act as the base for a person's interaction: assertive, passive, aggressive, and passive-aggressive. Now, it's so weird because I didn't intend for the Joe Triple L crew to fit so perfectly into the communication styles, but they do. So I have an outline now for their story, but what I have is just enough Passive communicators tend to be emotionally dishonest and indirect. They put other people above themselves, and passive people absolutely hate conflict. Joe here is our passive character. One may refer to him as a cuck or a He's not assertive whatsoever. Joe can see with his own eyes that the business that he created is going to hell because of the things his friends do, but he won't say anything about it, mainly because he's afraid to rock the boat. To be a passive person, it takes a lot of empathy towards other people's feelings, but this also takes a toll on your mental health, and Joe always appears like he needs therapy for that reason. Aggressive communicators tend to be honest and direct, not caring about how others feel about their words. This includes belittling, insulting, and dismissing in order to express their thoughts. Zaraya is a good example of an aggressive communicator. Usually with aggressive people, you'd imagine that they're assholes, but really, sometimes the most passionate people out there can appear aggressive. Zaraya only becomes aggressive if she feels like her friends, her job, or her abilities are being attacked. And the key word here is if she feels. Meaning, if she detects something off in your tone, your words about something or someone she cares about, she gets aggressive. Just think of the Wiggler from Mario. This is so stupid. That's a bad comparison, but you know what, guys? She's basically a damn Wiggler. Passive-aggressive communicators tend to be emotionally dishonest and indirect, but they still try to get what they want while still trying to appear passive. Elijah would be a perfect example of a passive-aggressive communicator. Look no further than the freaking Burger King meme.
I'm in a drive-thru a Burger King. Can I please get a Whopper Jr. with onion rings? Make it a meal so I can get a drink. No, I'm not finished, that's not everything. Can I please get a double Whopper with no cheese? Can I please get a number 2 with a large drink? I got money so I don't care how much it costs me. So just throw in some extra fries, don't make them salty.
Oh my god, don't listen to that song more than once. You're gonna stim to it, I'm telling you. I've had this shit stuck in my head for like a week. But anyways, the actions of using Joe's credit card, despite knowing he's in a financially tough spot, is very passive-aggressive. By everyone's face, it's clear that no one knew he would do that because a passive-aggressive person tends to be very avoidant and covert with their actions. The passive thing here is not asking Joe first to use the card because he wants to avoid the conversation altogether. He fears that the answer would obviously be what everyone knows it'll be. The aggressive part of this is using the card at the drive-thru, hoping Joe doesn't say a word about it. If Joe says don't use the card, Elijah's a good dude. He won't use the card because he's not entirely aggressive. But that's not the point. What matters is that he uses his passiveness to secretly act more aggressively. And that makes Elijah a passive-aggressive communicator. He doesn't get what he wants typically, and neither does anyone else in this situation. Next, we have the assertive communicator. The psychologist would tell you that this is the kind of communicator you're supposed to be. Someone who isn't afraid to express their needs while also considering someone else's needs. Juliana is that kind of character, and the more I write her, the more she becomes almost a straight man, especially compared to these 3 clowns. An example from an outline I wrote shows Juliana getting pissed off about how dilapidated the building is, expressing her thoughts, but at the same time she listens to what the others are saying about, why they can't fix the building. Juliana is not fully nice, but she's not fully mean either. She's just very assertive in the way she talks. After understanding everyone else's opinion, she takes action into her own hands. This chart is an easy way to remember the communication styles because from this you can understand the character's goals and relationships from just 4 simple words. Of course, you can also use this for yourself. It's not just for your fictional characters. As for me, I'm very naturally passive, but since I've studied this crap, I try to be more assertive. Being assertive requires having an open mind, and having an open mind can be difficult, but it's a great skill to develop so you won't go crazy. Anyway, look no further than the anime video. God, help me. You could see moments where I try to be assertive, acknowledging what someone said, and then I'd confidently restate my own opinion. But as the comments kept coming, my energy for replying started to fade, and I defaulted back to being passive. The fact that I liked this and agreed with this despite not agreeing whatsoever, it's very passive behavior. One may call me a what was the other thing I called Joe? Yeah, I'm a too. I didn't agree with the comment, but at this point I was so tired of trying to explain this since I've already explained it in the video and in many comments. You know, the quickest way to end a conversation, especially one you don't feel like partaking in, is just agreeing. This is a cursed communication tip. Anyway, try to find your personal communication style because it's important to know yourself. We can all strive to be assertive, but it's hard to completely change personalities. And as a writer, you have to change personalities a lot, especially if you have different characters. So when writing a character's communication style, make sure it's consistent. And I'm not saying make your characters assertive or passive with everything they say, because us as people, we're not always assertive. I'm not always passive. Sometimes I'm passive aggressive, you know? And that same thing will apply to your characters. Don't make them all one note. People are not just one thing all the time. That's how they become a caricature. Instead, just keep that base 4 communication styles in mind while you're writing. That's a good way to make sure they're distinct. Okay, on to the next one. So 2152, the trifold article, is not real, but I still try to apply different cultures within the story. Of course, if you have characters in a more grounded story, it's easy to do some research and apply different cultures from different countries. That way you could get different types of intercultural communication. But if you've written fictional places like me, this is kind of my approach to doing it. Here's a map I drew to help me visualize it better. I don't share this map with anyone because it needs some work. Forest Town is so creatively bankrupt. It's a temp name, okay, but the idea is that this is an old travel guide before the apocalypse started, and Gioni kind of started editing the old travel guide to make it more current. So, yeah. That's basically it. I thought making my map like this would make it a little bit more fun for me. It's really on theme with the dystopian themes of the book. But anyway, within each place, I try to give it its own culture. Let's start with Hay City Park, also known as City 2. The streets are dilapidated, the windows and buildings are cracked and collapsing. In such a setting, you'd expect people to wear more neutral colors, maybe even more torn clothing, but yet the people who live here tend to wear bright colors. It's a real juxtaposition to their background. One could say that it's a red door. Symbolism to show that even though everything isn't fine, they wear bright positive clothes to appear like it is fine. This is a shared sentiment within the community. I think the only person who's wearing dark colors is Gioni. In fact, her colors are very plain compared to everyone else. And this shit sounds so corny. It's so corny because I'm saying it out loud, but you know, guys, Gioni is not like other girls. But within the story, I don't really draw attention to this. This is just a small detail that I kind of just wrote into the story, but I didn't write it. I've never explained it to anybody. It's not explained in the story. The only way you know about it is because I'm telling you right now through this YouTube video. Other than that, it's like an unspoken thing. But something as simple as a color palette can really convey how well someone assimilates to their culture. Think of The Last Airbender with the Fire Nation compared to the Water Tribe, or in She-Ra with Bright Moon and the citizens compared to the Fright Zone and the Horde. Creating cultures can do wonders for your world building. If you remember from the Redemption arc video, you will notice that Emmett and Hippie Girl look different. First, Emmett has this emo look, a mullet, earrings, black nail polish, but as he tried to fit in, he switched over to the bright colors that are typically associated with people who live in City 2. It's the same for Hippie Girl, and the thing about this character is she's not from City 2. She's from the wildlife refugee, so her original look makes her look like an actual hippie. Earth colors, bohemian jewelry, messy hair. But as she assimilates into City 2 culture, she is less like herself and her old culture. Speaking of culture, hippie girl doesn't really sound like anyone else in the book. She usually ends her sentences with flower or butterfly. It's very weird because no one else in the book speaks like that. It's a type of informal dialect, and that hints that she is from somewhere else. City 2 dialect that I wrote into the story is very similar to my own speech pattern for 2 reasons. Let me give it to you. 1, most of the characters are from City 2, so having to do like several characters and giving them each different dialects would be insane. So for characters that show up a lot, I give them a less distinct accent, and I think a lot of writers do that anyways, because like you're not gonna have the main character with like a very strong, hard to write accent. It's ideal for writing speed and sanity. The second reason is I can't do dystopian slang. You know what I mean. Like you know what I mean. And I'm not above this. I can't get around it. Dystopian typically has slang and made up words. I'll only do it if I think it's necessary. The only fake words that I've made up for this book is Zekrin, Outergen, and Geogen. And even so, I think Outergen and Geogen are just like prefixes and suffixes mixed together. Surprisingly, the word tenebrous is actually a real word, and it took me hours, guys. Literal hours to find this word. I had to go through every dictionary, every synonym, every suffix, every prefix. I even went to the Latin words, and this is how I found the word tenebrous. It was a whole entire mess. But me personally, I'd rather spend hours looking for real words than make some shit up. This book is borderline cringe. It is my cringe. But if I can limit the amount of cringe, I will do that. I am not using words like shuck, okay? I love The Maze Runner. I'm not making up words like shuck. I'm so sorry. But anyways, that's City 2 dialect. We also have City 1, which is called Outergen. It's a super city, you know, the type of city billionaire tech people make. And of course, that's what influenced the weird name Outergen. But they also go by City 1. People from City 1, they don't use contractions, so a character like Bree, for example, instead of saying I'm, she would say I am. And instead of saying words like doesn't, she'd say does not. And I thought that would be fun to use this as her informal dialect. One fun fact that actually inspired the City 1 accent is that I thought this was hilarious. So British people used to sound like Americans back in the 18th century, but over time it developed into what we hear now, which is absolutely buck wild. So you can have characters speak English, but not everyone speaks the same English. There are so many different versions of English. You can use the ones that exist or make up accents like I have. Side note, if you have a character with an accent, for the love of God, please don't exaggerate their accent unless you're trying to be funny.
Well, at least we're not getting slaughtered in mathematics class.
If you're not making a meme, there's another way you could show someone has an accent while being tasteful about it. Let's talk about Britain, because we haven't made fun of them enough. Here's an example of what I thought is a British slang, I guess, or how their accent sounds like. Roy, look at this beautiful bloody walk of art. Pretty, isn't it? I'm so sorry. I cannot do a British accent. I'm so sorry, but but that's technically what a British accent may sound like. But if this was in a book or a comic, how would anyone take it seriously? Like, do you get what I'm trying to say? It'd make the character seem like an unintelligent joke of a human being. Now, you're asking, okay, how do I show this character is British without doing that? Simple. Right. Look at this beautiful bloody work of art. Pretty, isn't it? That's still not British. I'm so sorry. I can't do it. I can't do it. But essentially, this is it. That's all you have to do. You could tell this character is British because the word bloody is very British. It's their informal slang. For example, like when I try not to curse, I say the word freaking. Like, this is freaking stupid. You're a freaking idiot. What the freak is that? Freak the freak out. I'm gonna listen to that song after this video. But a British person, they wouldn't say the word freaking. They would probably use the word bloody. Also, the word isn't it is an informal British word that is derived from the phrase isn't it. Think of how we use the word ain't. It's not a real word, but it's our informal way of saying the word edit or whatever we use ain't for.
Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
It informally became a real word because we use it in our slang all the time. Just use informal dialects to show someone's accent. Now, I'm not pointing a gun to your head. I'm not saying that you can't make a character talk like this. I'm just saying that no one will take that character seriously. And as a reader, it's fun at first, but after a while, it becomes really, really, really annoying. I think of like Martha from The Secret Garden. This book is great, but a slog to get through, especially when Martha starts yapping. I could barely understand what she's saying.
What the hell are you talking about?
Like, I don't know where Yorkshire is. I've never met someone from there, so I can't imagine how it sounds like in my head when I'm reading it.
The bus schedule, the next bus.
I can't understand your accent.
This book is over 100 years old, and languages change. I don't think anyone modern sounds like Martha, so if you're deliberately spelling it wrong, it gets confusing. I won't harp on this any longer, but please, as someone who likes communication and someone who likes reading, please spell words correctly and sprinkle in informal words instead, please. Also, side tangent. Because if we're not doing already a side tangent, this is a side tangent on a side tangent. I feel like calling out Yan because it's on theme for this video. But we were talking about groceries, specifically fish, and I was like, yes, I love tilapia, I love salmon. And she was like, what fish? And I was like, salmon. And then she was like, salmon? She doesn't sound like that, does she? No, I'm gonna try to do her voice. Salmon? I think that was pretty close. But it's funny because, like, I don't know why I pronounce it like salmon. Even my dad corrected me on this once. But the interesting thing is, I don't know why I say it like that. Maybe I've just read it like salmon as a kid and I just stuck with it my whole life. There's people out there who always say salmon, so I'm not the only one who calls it salmon. But anyways, it's so weird when you read a word but you've never pronounced it out loud. It can really create like weird pronunciations of things, like I'm telling you. As a kid, I always read this as untilted. And I still do in my head. Like, I will never out loud say untilted. Like, if you told me, Maddie, read this for me, I will be like, untitled. But in my head, I'm like, untilted. What is dyslexia, guys? I'm Bella Thorne. What the fuck? It's 12 a.m. Oh my god, why the fuck am I talking about Bella Thorne? Oh my gosh, anyways. Oh my god. I also pronounced the word DeviantArt incorrectly. Like, I joined the site when I was 14 years old, so I can't remember how to pronounce DeviantArt. DeviantArt? Like, I don't know. It's just DeviantArt to me, and I just pray that no one tells me to say DeviantArt. Language and culture can be really confusing, but it's all fun nonetheless. Also, if you pronounce it like salmon, let me know. Let me know so we can all rise up against Yan. Our battle will be legendary. But anyways, we went so far off topic that we aren't even talking about OCs anymore. But hey, I always say some of the best writing you can learn is from stuff you observed or experienced in your real life. Apply some of these traits to your characters, and they'll feel more like real people for sure. Let me know if you use Proxemics in your artwork, or if you use the 4 communication styles or different cultural dialects in your writing and art. I need to know, even if it's unintentional. Also, let me know if you guys want to dive more into communication studies when applying it to art and writing. This degree is useless as hell. But I find so much value in applying it to my own work, and I hope it can be applied to yours as well. But you know what, guys? I think that's it. That's the video. If you're interested, check out my book 2152, The Trifold Article. It's both animated and illustrated, sci-fi and adventure. This book I've mentioned a lot in this video. It's a great resource if you're curious about how I can apply real psychology to fictional characters. Anyways, that will be linked below, as well as the newsletter. I have a Discord for artists and writers that'll also be linked below. Like and subscribe and whatever, that is much appreciated. Have fun while creating today, and I'll see you guys later!